Hello everyone, this is Andrew. Welcome to Keen on America.
On July 4th, 2026, America will be 250 years old. An anniversary that will, no doubt, be greeted with a mixture of celebration, contemplation, and resignation. In Keen on America, Andrew talks not just about the American past and present, but also speculates on its future. What, Andrew asks, will be the 21st century fate of this now venerable American republic?
Hello everybody. A couple of years ago, we did a show with one of the internet's bad girls, Elise Loehnen, the author of the best-selling On Our Best Behavior, The 7 Deadly Sins and the Price Women Pay to Be Good. She talked about how women need to be sinful rather than good. According to the New York Times, Elise outgrew the wish to be perfect. Many of you will be familiar with Elise's very popular podcast, probably much more popular than this one, Pulling the Thread, which is about self-improvement. It's a weekly show. And Elise is back with another book about not being good, Choosing Wholeness Over Goodness, a process for reclaiming your full life, by Elise Loehnen and Courtney Smith. And I'm thrilled that Elise is joining us from Los Angeles. It's an appropriate place for you to live, Elise. I mean, you can be really bad in Los Angeles. I'm in San Francisco, where you're not allowed to be bad.
You don't think? Tell me more.
Well, when I want to be naughty, I go down to Los Angeles. So,
oh, really?
Los Angeles definitely is a sinful place, isn't it?
I
bet you enjoy walking around and see all those fellow sinners.
That's right. We're terrible people down here.
So over the last couple of years, we haven't talked for a couple of years. I hope you have been pretty sinful. What's the naughtiest thing you've done over the last couple of years?
God, I'm still quite compliant and obedient. What is the most sinful thing that I've done? I haven't broken any laws. I haven't. I guess I've just been eating to my heart's content. And when you're a woman and you've been conditioned to goodness, and the way that I set up On Our Best Behavior is that it's organized according to the 7 deadly sins, which feels so strange for anyone who was raised outside of Catholicism, but they're really a punch card for what it is to perform your goodness to the world. So a good woman is never tired. A good woman needs no praise, affirmation, or attention. A good woman doesn't really have any wants. She subjugates what she wants to other people's needs. A good woman has a very compliant body. She's very disciplined about what she eats, and probably her body is as small as possible. A good woman doesn't really talk about money. Money is base and unspiritual and for other people. And if she were to have more, someone would have less. A good woman is sexy, but not sexual. A good woman is desirable, but not desiring. And a good woman is never angry about any of this. And that all of those ideas correlate with the 7 deadly sins. And on the flip side, I would say men are conditioned for power. The worst thing in our culture you can be as a man is weak, feminine, and not somehow like a protective ideal according to our patriarchal culture. But men can do terrible things, and it's fine. We don't care as long as they're powerful. But for a woman, reputational harm is the worst thing that you can do. All you need to do is say that someone's a bad person, a bad mother, a toxic boss or coworker, and poof, she will, not only is she gone, she will likely disappear herself, or another woman will do it to because so much of this is we police each other according to these ideas. So I've been working. I am not out of my cage, but I have been working really hard to even understand the ways in which I am performing this idea of what it is to be a good woman versus being a little bit more true to who I am and want to be in the world.
So would it be also fair to say, after that good woman narrative, that a good woman is miserable? Is that the problem with being a good woman? Because I mean, if the things you're talking about made women happy,
Yeah.
then presumably that wouldn't be such a bad thing, is it?
Right. No. Yeah, I'd say it's not misery, but I think that undergirding, and this is really what this next piece of work that's coming out, Choosing Wholeness Over Goodness, is about. When you are repressing all of those basic human instincts, really, that's what the 7 deadly sins are. It's what it is to be alive and to be engaged with the world and in touch with yourself and what you want and your appetites and inclinations. And so when you're suppressing or repressing or trying to control those very human instincts, it takes a tremendous amount of energy, and it is largely driven by fear, right? To not abide, to be sort of quote unquote bad, can result in cancellation, exclusion. You might lose the people who theoretically love you because of the services that you provide. So whether that's rational or not, I think for many women, or myself particularly, there's a ton of fear that if I don't perform this for people, I will be kicked out of society. The baseline fears are fear of loss of approval, fear of loss of control, fear of loss of safety and security. And I think that's what we're strumming in the performance of these sort of quote unquote virtues is let me be in the in group. I belong. I'm a good person. Don't send me out to perish by myself on the plains. I think it's that sort of like baseline driven.
Yeah, it's a kind of social spanking in a way, or an anti-social spanking. And we are asking, of course, our viewers and listeners to manifest some good womanness in the sense of self-restraint, because the book actually isn't out until August. So you're going to all have to exercise severe self-control, because you're not going to be able to read it for about 2 months, Elise. I don't know how people are going to be able to cope with that. That's why we're doing this show. It's a test. What about in terms of the traditional American Puritan virtues? Because the more you articulate this vision of the good woman, it's the good, if not the good Christian woman, certainly the good American Protestant woman. Is there some culture here? I mean, obviously, this version of the good woman varies around the world, from Catholic to Jewish to Protestant to puritanical cultures. But is there something peculiarly American that lends itself to this good womanness?
That's a really interesting question. I think that, and I don't know, because obviously I'm American, so I'm just looking at it from this perspective. But I would say that we're such a and more we become a highly visible culture where everything is on display on social media. And so I think it's become more cacophonous. Like, look at my perfect parenting. Look at my perfect, beautiful home. Look at my
Instagram.
Body. Yeah,
all of it
exactly.
Instagrammable, of course.
Yes. And then sort of also dealt like, look at me, but look how humble I am simultaneously, which goes with pride. Don't think I'm going to be self-deprecating and put myself in my place so that you don't have to do it for me. So it's just very, I think, incredibly visible in America when you start looking for these themes. And I was raised in my father's Jewish. My mom she would call herself a recovering Catholic. I was not raised. I grew up in Montana, so we went to Jewish services in a Methodist church. I was raised outside of religion, really. Ultimately, the Jewish services were more about culture and community than they were about religion. And so, but it was shocking to me, raised in Montana by 2 liberal parents, and I went to this progressive school, that these were in me so insistently, which makes me feel like it doesn't matter whether you sign up for these consciously. I think for most of us, it's an unconscious bargain that we've subscribed ourselves to. And we're not conscious that these are the stories that are running our lives and dictating our behavior. Because the other thing that happened to me, and it was part of the process of writing the book, and even after the book came out, is recognizing
this is the first book, on Our Best Behavior.
And the next book is essentially, on Our Best Behavior, I make all of this clear, and then Choosing Wholeness Over Goodness is, okay, what do I do about it to become more aware of what I'm doing and how I'm holding up these stories? So, for example, This is part of the sloth chapter, and this is part of a big story that I have that I think a lot of people will relate to, which is I'm the only one who can do it right, so I need to do it all. And a lot of women, particularly, maybe men too, perform this story and are like, this is a big part of my ego identity is I'm the person. I don't delegate. I just take care of everything. I respond to everything quickly, etc. And I had so much anger actually at my husband about the lack of equity in our marriage because why am I the one who's, setting everything up? Why am I the one driving the kids to their extracurriculars? Why am I, why am I
and
the
the
only one
narrative,
cooking
of
dinner?
course, not that I want to speak as a woman here, but the narrative is I'm the one because I can't rely on you because you forget or you
Yes.
don't clean properly or you don't fold the clothes or the clothes smell after
Yes.
you've washed them. So
Yes. And like
it's
you're
a
going to
kind
ask
of
me how to make it.
perfectionism.
Yeah, it's a kind of perfectionism, but
It's a reaction, a response to a certain version of perfectionism. Your own history is interesting. You mentioned that you're from a part Jewish, part Christian family. You grew up in Montana, but a lot of people are familiar with your experience at Goop. You worked there. You were, I think, the second hire of Gwyneth Paltrow. It's a controversial subject. The New York Post, as you know, ran a piece suggesting that the culture there was quote unquote toxic. What did that experience and your involvement with Paltrow, when you were talking about the perfect woman, the picture of Paltrow was developing in my mind. Is that one of the formative experiences behind both On Our Best Behavior and choosing wholeness over goodness, this experience of the wellness, the cult of wellness?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both sides, right? So I think that that's an example of where you see a performance of what it is to be good and the instinct to sort of destroy. So that's a good example. I write about this in the envy chapter where um, I think envy is a massive driver, subconscious driver for a lot of women. When we see someone who has something that we want or is doing something we want for ourselves, our instinct, instead of saying, oh, that's my envy and I need to follow it in order to do what I want to do, our instinct is to destroy other people.
We
So I
stick
think
pins in them, right?
yeah. And so I think that that Goop is living inside of that mechanism was a really good example because you would say, well, why just don't pay attention to this if it's so irritating to you? So that's where that was one of the genesises of the book was like seeing what I think was subconscious envy. Like, how are you getting away with this? I need to put you back in your place. You are too big for your britches, etc. So that to me is, in one sense, it was one of the reasons that I came to write this book. And then just there's a lot of projection. And some of it, of course, is I'm sure valid, but a lot of the criticism, when you look at it, it's more about the person who's criticizing than about the actual activity. We just became like a lightning rod, a polarizing lightning rod for a lot of people's feelings about celebrity and thinness and so on and so forth. And some of it's deserved and some of it definitely was misplaced. But yeah, it was a really interesting place to work and to be in because I was a magazine editor for most of my life. And when you're working in magazines and writing books, to be fair, it's a one-way conversation. You're just sort of giving people content. And so this was my first time of being online in that way and engaging with people in real time. And that's a pretty interesting experience.
Elise, another person we did a show with, actually it was before yours, with a writer, another LA-based writer, Rena Raphael. She wrote a book called The Gospel of Wellness, which is a critique, an attack on what she calls the wellness scam of gyms and gurus, Goop, which you work for, and the cult of self-care. How would you position yourself? Are you in the Rena Raphael camp as a critic of the culture, the cult of wellness, or do you see yourself as an apostle of wellness, or do you have one foot in each camp, which can be quite painful, of course?
Yeah, I mean, I think that So this is what I would say, and then this is might be too long and complicated of an answer, but in the early days of the wellness movement, there was a lot of beauty there, and it was speaking mostly for women who have been ignored, underdiagnosed, misdiagnosed, and told for a long, long time that things are mostly in our heads, right? Like we all know the root word of hysteria. It's the wandering uterus, et cetera. So wellness really initially
I didn't
was,
know that. What does that mean?
so
What's a
hysteria.
wandering uterus?
So there was this belief, not even that long ago, that the uterus was wandering around the body causing malady. I mean, they
Ah,
wouldn't even let women do long distance running at the end. It was like 1970 or something that a
wow.
woman first ran the Boston Marathon disguised for initially as a man because doctors thought like that our wombs would fall out of our bodies.
Oh, I
So
see.
it's like a pretty recent history that we have been just treated as small as a version of a man, even though our chemistry is somewhat different. Our hormonal system is obviously different. We go through these big hormonal changes. So initially it was a beautiful movement saying, we need you to pay attention to us. And also, there's a lot that we can do for ourselves. Originally, it was like, move your body, manage your emotions, eat whole foods, drink more water, like very basic free stuff. Then people saw it as a profit center. Originally, there were no products, it was just content. And we would do these stories like with a OBGYN about how PCOS, for example, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is wildly underdiagnosed in women, and it causes hirsuteness and acne and problems getting pregnant and weight gain and
Acne. Oh my God.
yeah. So that's one example of a story that we did at Goop very, very early, like 15, 20 years ago. Like, do you have PCOS? And it was a Q&A with this esteemed multi-board certified physician. And that went viral because women were like, oh my God, this is what I have. And I have not been able to get a diagnosis. So that was the original genesis of it, was let's shift the aperture and take a bit more control of our health because we're not getting met how we need to be met in wellness. Then it became there was a huge appetite for it. And so what happens? It becomes capitalized. It becomes commercialized. The bros move in. And suddenly you have all of these contraptions and gadgets and products where there really wasn't a market for it before. And that's sort of where Goop was more informative at the beginning and then less engaged in all of this sort of products. It's mostly a beauty brand and food and clothing, but we get a lot of credit for creating it. And so, but it was never like, listen to us ever. It was always
Right, no, but my question, I take your point on Goop, but for Elise Loehnen,
for
the
me.
author of On Our Best Behavior and the upcoming Choosing Wholeness Over Goodness, do you see these two books as an attack on wellness, as part of the wellness scam, or do you see yourself as a prophetess of wellness in some way?
I don't see myself really of anything other than we need to be just more connected with ourselves. And the one final thing I want to say about wellness is that the Maha movement and what's happened in this country is a complete distortion of the wellness movement. And it infuriates me. I just want to say that it is not at all, that was never the core premise. Okay. So the way that I see it is, I am not anyone's guru. I'm wary of gurus. I like to work with a teacher for sort of until I feel like I've learned what I can, and then I move on. I'm offering information. I'm not offering a movement or a way of believing or thinking. I'm very wary of anyone who positions themselves as having the answers or being a Pied Piper for people. All I want to do is connect people to interesting thinkers, leaders, modalities, and let them choose from a wide cafeteria of options in terms of what feels resonant or true to them. That's really what I care about.
The
I don't have an ideology other than I want to understand what's driving me and make it as conscious as possible so that I can choose more consciously and less like I'm going to do what I'm told, you know?
And I take your point, but there is some ideological implications, shall we say, not so much in the title of the new book, Choosing Wholeness Over Goodness, but the subtitle, maybe an editor came up with it at your publishing house, A Process for Reclaiming Your Full Self. That's a highly seductive idea. The notion that we have, quote unquote, a full self. Is that fair? Is there some ideological implications of the notion that we all have this full self? It's kind of Rousseauian in a bizarre way. We've all separated from it by gender or civilization or capitalism. There have been many different takes on this. But the challenge for being human these days is, quote unquote, reclaiming our full self. What does the full self, Elise, what does it even mean?
Yeah. So it's more of a Carl Jungian idea of this idea of wholeness rather than goodness. And what we're talking about, that process, is to say, oh, this thing that I'm identifying in someone else, like their sluttiness or their laziness or however I'm judging other people or judging myself, that exists in me too. And that's okay. And rather than pretending like I am a perfect woman, I am going to accept that I have some darker, crappier parts too, and that it's my job to be present with that and to integrate it. And the more access I have to myself, rather than suppressing the parts of myself that I don't like or that don't abide with my personality, the more energy I have for the world. And so that's the process that Courtney Smith, who's my co-author, is an incredible coach. I'm not a therapist or a coach. Is this, I think it's 6 or 7 steps of identifying the story. So for example, in Sloth, one of my stories is mentioned as I'm the only one who can do things right, so I need to do it all. And then it's a process of taking that story and looking at the ways in which it has set up my entire life and the way that I am indebted to it, but maybe also enslaved to it. And what would happen if I said, you know what, instead of answering the school's email in the first 2 minutes, I'm going to let my husband answer it within the first 24 hours. Instead of killing myself to balance a meal every night, I'm going to order or let my husband figure it out. So it's taking these
Your
stories,
poor
making them
husband,
big.
is he under the table there? Is he still alive?
Yes. He doesn't listen to my stuff. So this is my vengeance, is just to talk shit about him.
Send him my
condolences.
condolences.
Now you're like, I understand
Maybe I should
why
marry
he
him.
doesn't
Maybe
listen to your
should,
stuff.
Yeah, I'll marry him next time around.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. You bring up Courtney Smith, your co-author. When I was looking around, she's a Hollywood. She has Hollywood looks. She graduated from Yale Law School, top school in the country. I wonder whether that, in terms of this apportioning of oneself, of trusting others, you clearly don't trust your husband. Were you able to trust Courtney more? Were you able to divide the labor? Were you able to say to Courtney, you do this and I'll do that, and I won't have to always follow up? Even if she's, in a sense, she looks like the perfect woman, it allowed you to be slightly imperfect, working with her. The first book was just written by yourself.
Yes. No, she looks like Cate Blanchett. She is the perfect woman. She's got
nothing in the closet. I hope she's got something.
No, she's really hard on herself. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Good. So she suffers. She's not as happy as she suffers.
Should be. Yes.
Good.
And part of her process, similar to me, was like, I'm going to go out and get all these academic degrees and then feel incredibly lost in my own life. So she was a management consultant, JD, and then became a coach, and is incredible with the Enneagram and a lot of different modalities. Yeah,
we're going to get to the Enneagram. I know one of the things I found about her is she's interested in what she calls the drama triangle.
Yes.
Was there a drama triangle? Well, there's you and Courtney. Was there there a third player in this drama triangle?
No, but we are all actors in our own drama triangles.
What is a drama triangle?
Yeah, the drama triangle is this concept from Stephen Karpman. It's from in the 70s, and it's an incredible way. And actually, when you understand the drama triangle, you can understand culture, really. And it is the victim, villain, hero dynamic, which we all recognize from any movie, or really, and a lot of products use it as a way to market. Like the government is poisoning you and you're the victim of the government and we're going to be the hero and we're going to resolve all your problems, right? It's sort of like 101. The government is a weird example to use, but this other product is killing you. We're a better product. We're the hero. You're the victim. But we use it in our lives all the time as a way to deflect responsibility and just blame other people. So it'd be very easy for me, right, with my story to say it's my husband's fault because he's the villain.
What's his name, by the way? You always talk about Rob.
But the point of the working with the drama triangle in a story is you realize, oh, this has nothing to do with Rob. Rob is not inspiring or invoking the story or telling me what to do or insisting that I take care of everything because I'm the only one who can do it right. I am subscribed to this story. This story is important to me. It's how I'm standing up my whole personality. And I need to take responsibility and get out of the drama triangle and stop being a hero and create the conditions of my life that allow for me to accept support from other people. But the drama triangle is one of the tools that we coach in the book that Courtney sort of delineates and takes people through so you can start to see, oh, that's what I'm doing here. That's what I'm doing here. And it's the language, like the victim language of I don't have any control and this is how it always is. And that starts to key you into the fact that you are in the drama triangle and there are ways to get out of it and take responsibility for creating a different set of conditions for your life.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking of you. We did a show with a novelist, Joseph Olshan. He's written a book called Milo's Reckoning, which is about the life and death of the Italian Holocaust writer Primo Levi. And he said something really depressing. He said that he felt that the more we, and Levi may have felt it himself, because Levi supposedly, although it's slightly controversial, committed suicide having survived Auschwitz. Olshan said that he felt the more we, and he's experienced a number of suicides of friends and colleagues over the years, he feels that in an odd way, the more we know one another, the more logical and even compelling suicide is. In other words, when we know ourselves fully, as you're suggesting, reclaiming our full selves, then maybe the outcome isn't human happiness, it's misery and recognition that life is bad and it needs to be just eliminated.
That is so dark. I hope that is not the conclusion that people come to. I think there's peace, because I think that when you spend a lot of energy trying to be other than who you really are, when you're not managing your fear about letting those parts that you think are culturally less savory come up, I think that that's a really hard way to live. And this is the other thing, and my next book that I'm writing right now, which won't be out for years, but it's about the Carl Jung concept of shadow and polarization and whatnot. And without going too deeply into it, I think we all know, you can witness someone's shadow, right? Like I can tell you who I think I am, and you, just by engaging with me, will be like, well, that's part of the story. But I also see these other parts of you that you're unwilling to, that are outside of your awareness and outside of your consciousness, right? And I think that spending a lot of time trying to not see our own hypocrisy is a harder journey than saying, oh yeah, I can be a jerk and sometimes people don't like me. And can I sit with that and allow that to be part of who I am rather than pretending otherwise? I think there's relief, but I could be wrong,
Well, you could be wrong, although you're probably not, Elise. I mean, that's what Rob should say to you. Tell him I told him. Tell him I told you that. I tell him that he sometimes suggests you should be wrong. I think one of the critiques, perhaps, of all this is a little indulgent. I found a piece from you that you wrote on, from earlier this week on Oprah, of all people, why a solo trip is the best form of self-care. And in the aftermath of the LA fires, it was only a solo ski trip that author, writer, and podcast host Elise Loehnen was able to reconnect with her fearless younger self. I'm not sure if you wrote that or maybe it was some of Oprah's editors. But there is a danger, at least seriously, in all this, that it does sort of degenerate into a kind of self-indulgence, wealthy white women having fun, discovering themselves, going on ski trips, whereas most women simply don't have the economic resources, the time, or the support system to do any of this.
Of course. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's why I got a free trip to go skiing. You think that I wasn't going to take the free trip to go skiing?
I don't blame you. I would have taken it. I hope you took Rob, did you? I know you couldn't. It was a solo trip. So he was stuck at home with the washing.
Yeah. Yes. And that's absolutely a fair point. That said, I go away all the time by myself and borrow like ADUs, like little guest houses, or it doesn't have to be grand. The point, I think, and this is self-care, yes, has like a bad name as being sort of a privileged thing. We all desperately need self-care, particularly as the temperature in this country goes up. We all need an opportunity to process our feelings, our fear.
And literally, not just metaphorically, but of course, with the environment we live in, a hotter
100%.
and hotter place.
Otherwise, you are absolutely not able to be present or there for your community, whether it's your family or a larger community. And I think that when we're sort of at capacity and triggered and reactive and defensive, then the fear and the sort of, it all just starts ricocheting and we start spinning. And all of these emotions, I think, are incredibly contagious. So the more resources that you have to manage yourself so that you can be present without flipping out, I think the better off we'll do. And, you know, we saw an incredibly moving, peaceful protest yesterday from people who are staying calm, staying embodied.
And we're talking on Sunday, June the 15th. This thing will go out in the next few days, but that was, of course, no King's Day. We've done a lot of King's Day.
But people, you know, we're doing a lot of helping each other stay calm. And we need that. That's a critical skill for all of us. And that's why self-care is not a leisure activity. It can be taking a bath or going on a walk or just being with yourself for a little bit.
Or indeed reading a book like Choosing Wholeness Over Goodness. Your fellow author, Courtney Smith, is a therapist. What she brings, which I'm not sure you were as familiar with, is this knowledge of the Enneagram. Tell me why, as you can imagine, I'm naturally skeptical. I
cannot imagine that.
Yeah, you can imagine. Like Rob, of course. I have to admit, I'm always suspicious of things like the Enneagram, which seem to confirm that we have these full selves, these things that we can reference. Why did you choose to partner with Courtney to write maybe a self-help book or a book about the self, which incorporates the Enneagram? Were you always convinced by it? Are you an Enneagram type?
I really like the Enneagram. Are you an Enneagram type 5? Have you ever taken a test?
I probably have. A 5 is, it's missing from the front, but that's a Freudian miss because we've got type 1 to 4 and then 6. We've got the reformer, the helper, the achiever, the individualist. That's 1 to 4.
Then the 5 is the
6 is the lawyer. What's type 5?
The investigator.
Ooh.
I'm a 6. I'm the loyalist.
You're the loyalist who's trying to be disloyal, right?
To the system.
That's the story of your life. Well, being loyal is bad, isn't it?
No, but I need to watch it in myself because I can be overly loyal.
Are some of them better than others? I mean, is the reformer, the helper, the achiever, the individualist?
No.
Are some of those worse, or we're all in one of them? How many are there?
There are 9 types. And what's interesting is that they share a father with the 7 deadly sins. So they're credited to this ascetic monk in the 4th century of Agrius Ponticus. And so there are 9 types and they each have their own vice. But what's beautiful about the system is that you have this sort of core way of being in your personality or way of perceiving the world. Courtney would say that like there's like a vibration that you really, I don't know what it is for a 5, but for a 6, it's this like desire to see and to know. So as an Enneagram type 6, context is really important to me. I want to understand the whole map. I understand that there are competing perspectives, et cetera. And I'm working my whole life to try to bring all of these
You're a
perspectives
6, you're a
together.
loyalist, you're committed, security-oriented, responsible, and anxious. So what's 5, did you say?
The investigator. So like the scientists, the people who, and your vice is hoarding information. Typically it's this, but would be called avarice. My vice is fear, which was dropped, which is not part of the 7 deadly sins. But your orientation is to like, you feel safe when you have a lot of information and when you sort of know everything. So Bill Gates is a 5. Sort of all the classic big brain
do a show about Bill Gates
thinkers.
later this morning about actually aggregating his $200 billion in Africa. So maybe he's it's manifesting in that way. So we're all, according to the Enneagram, we're all a type where everybody is one of them. Can we be mixed, or are we always pure?
No, you start under stress. You start see those triangles. You start moving around the Enneagram based on. So I'm a 6. So under stress, I go to 3, the dark side of 3, and all of the
and
types.
then you can sometimes go to 9 too, right? What's 9?
9 that's the peacemaker, the mediator, and a 9. A lot of our presidents, not Trump, but a lot of our presidents have been 9s. They just want harmony and oneness, and they. The dark side of a 9 is that they can dissociate, they can numb, they sort of go elsewhere when there's disharmony, and struggle to stay embodied. But they are sort of holding the top of the Enneagram. So when I'm
and then what's a 7? And because you said I'm a 5,
a 7 is an enthusiast. They are the ones that are like, can't this just be fun? Freedom is their primary value. They don't want to be constrained or confined.
They're Aquariuses. I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, you are. They can be very creative. But
so that's the good bit of the hoarder.
Yeah, they struggle to land the plane. They have a million ideas. They can be sort of chaotic. A lot of founders are 7s, but most CEOs are 3s, which is where I go under stress.
But wait, hold on, before we get to the 3, what's the 8? The 8's the dark side of.
The 8 is the challenger, and Trump is an 8. 8s just want conflict. They come alive in conflict. That's when they feel themselves, actually. And so they just want to meet resistance. And that's when they feel like they have power and control. And 8, ultimately, like they can be incredibly protective of the people that they love and terrifying to those that they don't. They are not really aware of how they come across in the world. Actually, Elon Musk is a 7 and Trump is an 8. Trump is an 8 who wings 7. Elon Musk is a 7 who wings 8. You have a wing on either side of you that is also defining.
I should get both Trump and
but they're
Musk
chaos
on my
together.
show, and then we'd have a 5, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
One problem with this, in all seriousness, Elise, is I'm sure Donald Trump and Elon Musk are no more popular down in Brentwood, where you are, than they are up in San Francisco. Does the Enneagram relativize morality? I mean, could we, and I don't want to bring up Hitler because that gets boring, but I mean, could you even have situated Hitler on the Enneagram of personality? Does it make we're all kind of about the same, really?
He could be, but then this is where you get into these, like each type has its shadow side and its light side. They call it unhealthy and healthy. And so an unhealthy 8 is very different than a healthy 8.
Oh, I see.
And so there's like all the propensities, like it's on you to sort of develop out of to be a healthy 5. And healthy 5s are Bill Gates, like they're changing the world. I'm trying to think of the shadow side of a 5. It can be, I think, secretive, distancing, maybe like essentially like a know-it-all, like extreme know-it-allness, like I can be taught nothing, etc. Whereas 5s are like, I'm going to get the best, I'm going to gather the best, I'm going to share it with the world, right? So you can sort of understand.
It's funny, sort of the dark and light side of 5 is reflected in Silicon Valley, in both in their generosity of giving the world the internet and then of profiting from it.
Yeah.
Your work, I'm sure it's read by men. I'm sure even Rob has read it. But it's mostly designed, it would seem, for women. The first book was On Our Best Behavior, the 7 deadly sins and the price women pay to be good. And then this new upcoming book is about reclaiming your full self, but it's a full female self. Is there a gendered quality to the Enneagram? I know historically it was developed by men. I assume that it was designed
No, it's
it
not
didn't really
gendered.
matter whether you're male or female. An 8, a 7, and 9 is an 8 and a 7 and a 9, whether you're male or female.
Yeah. And that's interesting because Courtney and I were just talking about this last week where someone asked her that question exactly. And she was like, I need to think about it, but it's not taught that way. And it's not interpreted that way as a gendered system. And a 6 is a 6. Typically, it's not, you don't perform your 6ness differently. And yeah, in terms of on our best behavior, yes, I wrote about women, but some men have not as many men. I think men assume that it's me being like, in the drama triangle with men and blaming them for the patriarchy and for our system. It's not like that at all. So the men who have read it have been some of its biggest fans, or in the way that they've reached out to me. I have some therapist friends who give it to all the men in their practice, in part so they can understand the psychology of women. Because I think when Rob read it, he was like, oh, now I understand what you're up to. Like, I didn't understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then sort of like blaming me for it.
Does Rob do anything well?
He's amazing. He's an amazing.
What's his greatest strength?
He is an incredible father, and we see he's a 9, and he's just like this calm, loving. He can dissociate and numb. Sometimes he's not present, but he is, and he's an incredible, he's a design.
So
an
it's
architect.
funny, he's a 9 and you're a 6. So you kind of naturally go. So do people, in terms of spouses, is there a sort of a symmetry in terms of these triangles?
I think that they're probably types. There are types that that will annoy specific types more than others. And so my guess is yes. I'm sure there are like a million Enneagrams about dating and marriage. I don't know, but yeah, there's certain like irritations or rubs. I have a hard time with 7s, for example, even though I could theoretically wing 7. I wing 5, like
What's
you.
That's my wing again. I forgot.
The 7 is the enthusiast who just like wants to have fun and doesn't want to like dwell in any of the feelings. But by not dwelling in any of their feelings, the feelings are still there. They're just find it uncomfortable. She's also a 6. 6s and 9s are the most common.
Well, I hope, Elise, it won't be another 2 years till we
I know
talk
this
again. You've been bad. The last 2 years.
Spicy.
Well, let's say we recongregate. We meet again in 2 years. What do you want to accomplish? How much? If there's such a word, can you be more bad over the next 2 years? What do you want to accomplish here? Where are we going to be in 2027? The summer of 2027 when we talk again.
I'm hoping that we'll speak when my next book comes out, because I'm hoping it will come out spring, summer, and that's about shadow. And there will be a chapter. Yeah.
The Jungian.
There will be a chapter about evil and whether it even exists, what it is as a concept. So we can really talk about badness.
But what about you personally? Don't hide behind your book. What are you going to accomplish over the next couple of years?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that I'm working on, which goes with the Pride chapter, is this, like, I like to make work in the corner of my bedroom and then hope that people read it. And I really struggle with the self-promotion and trying to sort of make myself bigger. I've always stood behind other people. And so that's what I'm going to try and work on, is I've been a little smug and a little bit sort of in the, I'm too good for this, but really it's about fear, because the more visible you are, the more people come for you. So that's what I've been working on too. And trying to get more energy behind my work.
So in other words, you need to be more self-promotional.
Yes.
You want to learn from men like Tim Ferriss and those types.
Yes. I watch all these guys. I watch the broadcasters, and it makes me a little sad. I'm not going to lie. So that's what I'm trying to get around my feelings about that.
Well, the broadcast world needs to be on warning. Elise Loehnen is after you. She has a new book out. It's out. You have to control yourselves. It's out in a month.
I'm coming for you.
Choosing Wholeness Over Goodness, a process for reclaiming your full self. She has, I think, herself brimming over with her own fullness, for better or worse. Elise, a real honor and fun to have you back on the show. You're a very generous person to put up with my silly questions. I appreciate it very much. And best of luck with the new book.
Thank you. Thank you.